All right, your host Michael Vosspine here for another episode of Drummer Nation Live. After a few missteps with some new gear I have, we're going at it in earnest once again. I've got a great show for you from Jeremy Steinkoler, the author of a book called Finding the Groove, which we're going to talk about at length, and is just amazing. If you're a pro, you'll recognize yourself in it. If you're just getting started, there's a lot to be learned from it. Stick with us. Let's get rolling. It's time for Drummer Nation.
Hey everybody, how you doing? This is Bobby A, and today I wanted to tell you about how much I really love the Hudson Music digital app. Okay, now, check it out. It's an app that you can get for your device, and you can purchase books from the Hudson Music digital store and have them stored right on your device. The great thing about it is you always have it with you, and any content that might be video related or music related is right there at your fingertips. It's a wonderful resource.
I absolutely love playing drums, and I couldn't imagine not having that in my life. And I really, if I could help facilitate that and have an impact on your life so that you can play drums, that means the world to me.
And with that, we are live, and here is my guest, Jeremy. Hey, how you doing, Jeremy? Thank you for being here.
Hey, Michael, thanks for having me, man. Second time's a charm.
You're a warrior. I screwed up the first time. We had issues the second time. This might be the third, but the second time we're trying this. So thank you very much. A little bit about Jeremy. You live on the West Coast, and you've
I
been a
do.
professional drummer your whole life. Fill us in a little of that prior to the book.
Yeah, I actually grew up in New York City, born and raised Manhattan. Went to Stuyvesant High School, then went off to University of Michigan, got a degree in literature, almost switched to music school, filled out the application at Manhattan School of Music and never sent it in, decided I should get a degree because who knows what happens. Moved out to California, been here in the San Francisco Bay Area ever since. Been teaching drums since I was in college, been playing drums since I was 10 years old. And, I've got a private teaching practice. I play in 4 or 5 different bands. I started a music school out here called Bandworks, which is a school of rock and roll kind of program. We see over 1,200 students every year. Started the Drummers Education Connection with a couple of my buddies, Chip Ritter, Bart Robley, and Rick Stojak. We do a weekly video cast talking about drum topics and teaching and education, and we interview famous drummers and industry people. And got a gig coming up in a couple weeks, the SF Jazz Center in San Francisco. That's a big one. And then Monterey Jazz Festival in September. So keeping busy. Oh, and I also started the East Bay Drum School out here. So I got lots of balls in the air, lots of irons in the fire, like many of us musicians do. Teaching, gigging, playing, running school, all that stuff.
Reminds me of somebody I know. Yeah, me. I've
Yeah,
been a pro all
yeah.
my life. I've been a teacher. I have a book. I do a podcast. You sure we're not brothers from another mother?
I think we are. I think we
We
are
must
indeed. Where are
be.
you from, Michael?
I'm from New Orleans originally. Grew up in Miami, Atlanta,
Oh,
lived in LA
fantastic.
for 10 years, bounced around the world, and here I am. Had a cymbal company
Mm.
for a while, but enough of me. What do you think of me?
I think you're great.
Anyway, do you know Ed Soph?
I know who he is. I
Well,
we don't
he
know
has
each
a
other.
degree in English, I think.
Oh, interesting.
So there's something to be said. I knew some kids when I was in LA years ago, they'd be studying with the pros out there. I'm sorry, I need to look at you at the camera, not at you on the monitor here. They studied with some pros, but they'd get a degree in something like liberal arts or something else because they were living in a place where they could ply their craft and study with the greatest, but get something useful as a degree. So have you ever used that degree?
Well, I have, but my literature degree, I wrote a book.
Well,
Um,
that's true. Yeah, yeah.
yeah. Used it in what way else? I'm
Well,
not
I
sure.
meant in
I've written.
terms of being a teacher or I don't know.
Oh, no, no. Pretty much as soon as I got out of college, it's been music full time, uh, full time playing, full time teaching, and that was what I wanted. I thought I wasn't one of those kids who grew up. Oh, as soon as I played the drums when I was 9 years old, I knew that was going to be my future. That wasn't it for me.
Hmm.
Even when I was in college, I wasn't 100% sure what I was going to do when I got out, just because I was anxious about it. Making a living as a musician these days, that's no easy task.
You're not kidding.
You got to love it. I tell my students, you got to love it, love it, love it if this is what you want to do, because it's full of heartache and pain, but also tremendous rewards. But it's only the money's not going to be there unless you make it happen. Which is hard to
If
do.
if you're in it for the money to get rich and be famous, do something else.
Exactly,
Play
exactly.
the
And
lottery or
then
something.
yeah, yeah, right. Then let this be a passion thing where you can play and enjoy it and not feel like you've got to rely on it for your income. But in any
Hmm.
case, that's the path I chose. And I have no regrets. I love what I do every day. My wife asked me, our friend asked me actually a few weeks ago, if you could retire tomorrow. And I said, what's retirement? But he said, if you could retire tomorrow, what would you do differently? And I had to think about it. I was like, not all that much. Maybe I play a little more golf, but
A little
uh,
fewer gigs. When Peter Erskine was 17, he went on the Kenton Band, and they had a little Creative World old school mailer that came out, a little flyer, and they were introducing him. Then they asked him about retirement. He was 17 or 18, I think. And
yeah,
he said, you don't retire from music.
I think that's right. I think that's right.
Why?
Remember,
This is what people do when they retire, if they can. They go back and pick up the horn again.
yeah, exactly right. Exactly right. I remember Elvin was playing till the very end. He had his wife with the oxygen tanks on stage, just to help him breathe, and still brought it when he was in his
As long as
80s or
you can
whatever.
still deliver, and that's the key. Elvin always delivered.
Yeah, oh,
Yeah.
100%. Yeah.
I don't want to be on the bandstand if I'm a shadow of what I used to be.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
It's
So
not
what
just because
brought
it's
you?
not just it's for us, but it's not just for us, right? It's also for the
Right.
audience and for the people, and we're
Right.
trying to
We have
have
an obligation to them. So what made
right
you
on.
write the book? What brought you to that? You have this great background in English. You're a good writer, and you've been a musician your whole life and a teacher, but it all comes together in the book. What caused that to come about?
Well, I was, it occurred to me that in my teaching practice, I tell stories a lot. And sometimes I tell stories, when I'm trying to elucidate some concept, or it might be about some gig I had, or, some lesson, some life lesson that I learned that's relevant to the lesson that I want to share with my students. And the more I started to think about it, the more I thought, there's so many experiences that I've had that I think are of value to share, that kinds of things that I wish that I had known or heard about or understood when I was a younger musician and an aspiring drummer and a younger teacher. And wouldn't it be great if I could share those for posterity, on paper, and distribute them to people that are not just my private students? Um, so it hit me like that, kind of like a ton of bricks this one night, and I stayed up till 3 in the morning, just doing a brain dump on my computer with all these, oh, I tell a story about this. Oh, I should be sure to talk about that. And I had this list that was like 15 pages long of topics and ideas and stories and experiences that I've had that I thought would be useful. And as I started to write, even more of them came out. I was like, oh yeah, but I forgot about this gig too, and this was a really important life lesson that I learned on this gig, or this is how I learned how to practice more effectively. And of course, by the time I was done, the book was like twice as long as it is now. There was plenty of redundancy and all sorts of extra stuff that I had to whittle down to, just the most important stuff that I thought was really,
Right.
really right on.
Well, let me jump in on that. I'm looking at the table of contents just to pique anyone's interest. This is just in the first chapter. Different teaching and learning styles, competence and confidence. Verse, you've got it in verse. I see you did verses and verse, chorus, bridge instead of chapters. That's cool. So here's some of the other topics: what you practice versus what you play, dynamics and intensity, tension and release. It's easier to add than to take away. Don't believe people who tell you what you can't do. Why every drummer should learn to read music. I mean, if this doesn't hit home with you, you're not really ready to play the drums. But I'm reminded of something you just said about having to delete some things because you don't want to be redundant. Something
Mhm.
Steve Jobs said. He said it was a lot easier to add a button than to take one away on a device.
So that's really that makes sense, and that's a concept for me in my drumming that I had to learn sort of the hard way. When I was a younger player and I had gone through all these books through the Funky Primer and things like that, and I had all this
Hmm.
vocabulary, and I thought, oh, I'm going to use everything I can at every moment, at every opportunity to show how badass a drummer I am, right?
Hmm.
And I was playing for myself when I was in my early 20s, and
I hear you.
it's pain. Any recordings I have that I haven't burned by now are so painful to listen to. But uh, as you grow up, you learn that music is a group sport, right? Like you're a team
Sure.
sport. You're trying to deliver this thing for the audience that is a complete package, and you're playing for the song. You're
Right.
playing for the music, and you've got to put yourself as part of that to do your job most effectively. And so, I discovered that it's a lot, just like Steve Gadd says. There's a chapter about Steve Gadd where he says this. It's a lot easier to start simple and then add if you feel like something's missing than it is to start with too much of a part, too complicated, overplaying. It's just harder to hear what to take away.
Exactly. When I was a young guy, I was 17. I think I had a gig with a Dixieland band at Six Flags Over Georgia. Summertime gig. Great gig, but I wanted to be Elvin. you know? And I would play my Elvin stuff and like, man, the other guys were kids too, or somebody would have slapped me on the wrist and said, "Hey man, don't do that."
Yeah.
We learn these things along the way, right?
Right. Thank goodness for the musicians who have the temerity to tell us what's happening and what's not happening, right?
We've all had our asses handed to us by some
Yeah,
great
that's how we learn.
musicians.
That's how we learn, right?
That's how you learn.
Yeah.
So one of the things I love about the book, and I mentioned this to you once before, I can open it to any page and find something I can relate to. So I'm just going to open it to some pages. Duke Ellington sagely said, "If it sounds good and it feels good, it is good." Okay, I'll go with that. Let me find another page here. I'm just sort of randomizing. In many styles of music, you will find songs with different degrees of swing, and then you go into an analysis of how things can swing differently in different types of grooves, and if they swing a little or a lot. And here's another one. It's nearly impossible to be great at every one of these styles. All you need to do is listen to someone who's steeped in hard bop to know you need to live and breathe that music to become really accomplished at it. I remember when I was a young guy, I thought I had to play everything.
Right.
And then, of course, we realized we can't.
Yes, right.
And
That's
not
right.
only that, the greats that we admire can't,
And didn't. Right.
And didn't. Elvin didn't try to be anything other than Elvin, and thank God for that, right?
Yeah, that's really one of the through lines for the book. If you read all these chapters and essays rather, and they're about all these various topics. But one of the threads that I tried to sort of weave into the whole narrative there was that ultimately, playing music is about, becoming who you are as a musician. What that journey's about, and not. God, when we're young, we aspire to emulate our heroes and sound like all these great drummers. But the most important thing is that you become the best version of yourself, and it's not a competitive sport.
Right.
And all our heroes, all the guys we admire and gals we admire, they're the musicians who are they were most themselves. Even think about someone like Bob Dylan. It's a great example of, just this amazing transcendent singer-songwriter. Not a great guitar player, but a capable finger picker, and not a great singer by most people's standards, but one of the most important musicians of the 20th century.
He's a great Bob Dylan.
Exactly. He's the best Bob Dylan there could
Bob
be.
Dylan in the world. That's right.
Yeah. So yeah, just remember
my
to
friend
treat
Jamie Haddad, when he was with Paul Simon's band, he said, "My goal is to make the guy standing next to me sound a little bit better."
Yeah, right. That resonates.
Listen, selflessness, and you find yourself within that.
That's right. Exactly
Now, one thing
right.
I want to point out maybe to some younger players, we're not dropping names here because we know these people and we're showing off. These are the people you have to learn. You have to know these drummers and who they are and what they sound like. And we bring them up in the context of helping you to be aware of that and to learn that. So a bunch of people, when you get musicians together, they talk about their heroes. Here's another one. I'm a big believer in surrounding yourself with musicians who are simpatico. My buddy Jeff Hamilton used to tell me, not everybody is supposed to play with everybody.
That's right. That's right. Be careful be careful of the gigs you wish for, because sometimes you get there and like, oh, this isn't really the best vibe,
This shouldn't be where I am. Yeah.
Right.
And you get that vibe.
That's really important one.
Now, let me take a break for a spot and we'll come back and talk about your other endeavors.
Cool.
Hang in there, everyone. Drummers who prefer dark cymbals with fast responses will love the HH Vanguard series from Sabian. Vanguard provides an elegant, complex sound that is always musical. Each model is fully hand-hammered to be thin and light, with a flatter profile for a deep fundamental tone and a smaller, musically integrated bell. The result is a clean, woody stick definition with exceptional articulation and responsiveness. Find detailed information at Sabian.com/Vanguard. Memphis Drum Shop is the world's premier provider of percussion instruments. With 6 showrooms of gear, mycymbal.com, the Memphis Gong Chamber, and a first-rate repair department, turn to Memphis Drum Shop for all your percussion needs. Who was that crazy guy? I'm going to sneak in another one. This is a spot for Jeremy's book.
Hey everyone, Jeremy Steinkoler here. I want to tell you about my new book, Finding the Groove. Finding the Groove is a collection of essays about drumming, teaching, and performing that draws on my experience of over 30 years as a professional drummer and educator. It's loaded with valuable insights for drummers on how to practice effectively, understanding the role of the drummer in the band, and why how you play is often more important than what you play. In the book, I describe how to develop the tools to play with good feel, as well as the importance of understanding pocket and degree of swing, and why playing less is often a smarter choice than playing more. But more than a guide to being a better drummer, Finding the Groove is really a book about becoming a better musician. In addition to the stuff specific for drummers, there's also broader musical and life lessons that all musicians will relate to. One of my goals with this book is to offer you a guide to help navigating the path to finding your own voice as a drummer and to battling some of the demons of self-doubt that so many musicians struggle with. Because no matter where you are on your path in drumming, in music, or in life, it never hurts to have some guidance to help you get there.
All right, sage advice, and you can see why I'm attracted to this book. Let's go on to your other endeavors. You have also, let me see if I can punch this up. This is your school. Tell me
Yep.
about it.
So when I first moved out to California, it was 1992. I was 22 years old, and I started playing in a band with a friend of mine who became one of my dear friends. I've been playing with him in bands ever since. His name is Steve Gibson. He's a guitar and bass player. And we were hanging out after our rehearsal one night, and we were bemoaning the fact of how difficult it was for our students to find other people to play music with. And, at the time, this is before the internet, remember? So the main, avenue people had for connecting with other musicians was like, flyers on music store bulletin boards or classified ads or friends and word of mouth. So we thought, would it be a cool idea if we got some of our students together, we could coach them into playing in a band together, and we could work them toward a little, rock and roll recital. And so we had this idea. We get really excited about it. We stayed up till 2 a.m. talking about it. A lot of those conversations turn into nothing. But this one, we decided we just kept taking one step at a time, next step, next step. We put together a group, found a place, brought all the equipment, and here we are 27 years later, and we have 1,200 students every year. We've got multiple locations. We do summer camps, rock band workshops for kids and adults, and it's grown into this thriving amateur musical community here in the Bay Area.
Good for you, man. Good for you.
Thanks.
And you also tell me about your pod. I didn't grab a screenshot of your podcast. I apologize for that, but it's video,
that's okay.
Right?
Yeah, it's a video cast I do every week with these 3 other great drummer educators, Rick Stojak, Bart Robley, Chip Ritter. And this came about just at the beginning of COVID. We were all kind of, didn't know what to do with COVID. We were all stuck at home. I got into some recording stuff, which was really fun and exciting for me. I learned how to set up my home studio here. And Rick Stojak called me and said, "Hey, I'm putting this thing together with Chip and Bart. That's going to be like kind of like a drummer water cooler hang. I got the music store where you're shooting the breeze. We're going to maybe interview some drummers. We'll talk about drumming and teaching. And you want it? Are you interested?" And I said, "Oh, absolutely." So we were on our 81st episode now. We do it every week, just about Tuesday mornings, 11 a.m. Pacific time. It's called the Drummers Education Connection. You can join the group on Facebook. We also have a website called drummersedcon.com. And it's interviews with heavyweights. We have Greg Bissonette and Gene Hoglan on there. Industry people like the guys at Sabian, Joe Bergamini, and Hudson Music, Rob Wallace. All the people we all know and love. Great guys, and that's it. Yeah, it's a fun hang, and it's just we're just trying to provide valuable content for the drumming community. There's no money involved in it. We're just doing it because we love it, and it's a fun hang, and we think we can offer something to the drumming community.
Beautiful, man. I think we have that in common too. I
Yeah,
have spots
right
on
on.
here, as you see, but there's no money involved. It's a
Right.
friendly barter thing. Most people don't realize how tiny the industry is.
Mm-hmm.
I was just looking at something in the paper today about the entire music industry is equal to less than 5 days of sales at Walmart.
Wow. Yeah, puts it in perspective, doesn't it?
It
Despite
really
the NAMM
does.
show. Yeah.
Yeah, despite the name show. And they're some of the bigger companies. I won't name any names, but the ones we think of as giant in the percussion industry, there are single grocery stores that outgross them.
Right. They're really small to, they're sort of small to small, medium sized businesses
Right.
compared to, yeah.
And that's not a slight on them. I mean, the fact that they've managed to become
That's,
household names for some of them, it's because they're in the entertainment industry. It's very cool.
yeah.
Anyway,
Hmm.
my guest Jeremy Steinkoler, I said that right, right?
Yep.
Finding the Groove. It's on Hudson, is it not?
Yeah. The digital version of the book was published on Hudson. And, when I approached them I got really lucky. I mean, the guys at Hudson are so great. Rob and Joe, I love those guys. And they're great, not just great drummers and educators, but they're just great people.
Ditto. Yes,
When,
indeed.
when I sent them the first manuscript, I mean, I got an immediate response from Joe saying, "This is great. We want to put this out." But at the time and since, they're really moving away from distributing hardcover
Right.
books. They still have a handful that they'll do, like this amazing Stuart Copeland book that just came out that Joe produced, and uh, there's some biography stuff, but mainly they just do digital now. So that was the idea. They
Right.
said, we're going to put this out digitally for you. You can still publish it hardcover or paperback, whatever you want. So you can find the paperbacks on Amazon, and you can find the digital version on Hudson Music.
Beautiful. And it's a second edition already, right?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's one of the nice things about, doing it yourself, is that you can update it as needed, and so uh, the second edition is a little different than the first. It's got a handful more essays, some stuff that was not fully formed at the right time of the writing of the first edition, but stuff that by the time I was done with it, I was like, this is too good to not include, and I'm not going to write a whole nother book just for these, handful of essays. So I added some essays, revised a few others, took away some commas, added some commas, all that stuff. And then I vastly expanded my list of favorite drummers. So it started off as like a 3-page thing, and now it's like 12 pages worth.
However
Um,
many pages you use, you're going to leave somebody
it
out.
doesn't matter, man. It's my book. I get to do whatever I want. Yeah.
That's right.
And,
Gosh
and
darn it.
the
Sure
idea
book.
behind that, was really to just like turn people on to people.
Hmm. Hmm.
If you haven't heard of Bill Stewart, check him out, man. He's incredible. You know.
That's why I was saying earlier, we're not dropping names to show off. I mean, these are the people you need to
Oh yeah,
know. You
these
got
are
to
the
know who
people
these
that
cats are, man.
these are the people whose music I dug. Whose
Hmm.
music shaped my life. As
Hmm.
a player
Hmm.
and as a listener. Yeah.
One more thing before we wrap up. I took an astronomy course once in college, and the professor said on the first day, he said, "You're going to make some friends in this class that will be with you the rest of your life.
Mhm.
And you can turn to them when you're happy or sad or in big events or small events. And I'm not talking about anybody sitting next to you. I'm talking about the stars." Which was a real good grabber, and
Yeah, yeah.
it's the same thing here, man. You go listen to these cats; they will be there for you the rest of your life.
And if you're fortunate enough, some of them those guys will become your friends because they're just people too. You know.
Exactly. That's
I mean,
right.
all the guys that we've had on the Drummers Education Connection, right? Like, oh my God, so and so's coming on. They're just dudes, and ladies. They're just people who want to connect with other people just like we do, and they're accessible and they're humble. And I've one thing about the drumming community that's to me, in my mind, is specific to the drumming community is the spirit of brotherhood and sisterhood. Like
Absolutely.
you never feel like people are cutting each other down or competing or trying to be cutthroat with getting gigs and stealing stuff. And it's always supportive. Everyone's happy to show you what they know and share their stuff online. And it's such a beautiful community. It's so honored to be a part of it. And I
Same here.
hope that this,
I went to see. I was watching Stanton Moore once. We were business partners, and they're packing up with Galactic. He says, "Hey, get over here and show me that thing that Jeff showed John Brushes." So I'm
yeah,
showing it to him, and the kid comes up and says, "Are you Stanton's teacher?" I said, "Hell no! I'm not. He's a world class drummer. He's just humble enough to say, 'I don't know that. Show me that.'"
right.
And they're all that way. Most everybody
Yeah,
is humble and respectful. And I like what Don Bennett said. I don't know if you know Don Bennett. He used to have a shop on the West Coast. He said, "Put two or more drummers in a room together, and before long, fun breaks out."
yeah, yeah. It's
And
just
of
a
course,
shame we can't have more than one drummer in a band most of the time,
yeah,
right?
I know. Yeah, yeah. If you did, you wouldn't like it.
Yeah.
Some bands have. There were some bands that
Yeah,
did that. But
right.
all right, Jeremy, I appreciate you being my guest, and I think we covered it this time without any screw ups.
Yeah,
So
Michael, thanks so much for having me on, man. It's been a pleasure. Love what you're doing here with the the podcast, and happy to be a part of it, man.
Appreciate it. Take care.
All right.
All right. I think if you look up nice guy in the dictionary, you're going to find Jeremy there. So a couple of things on, so my thank you to him very much and for being so patient. Hey, you want to take drum lessons? I do that. Do it from right here, digitally, beautiful, all that stuff. Patreon, you want to send me a few shekels every month? You know how to do that. Look up Drummer Nation. Venmo, send me a little something, something. Like I said, none of us are doing this for money. And then here's a little cool thing: buy me a coffee. I saw some other people doing this. It's $5 or something. Give a little money to help out. Okay, that's about it for me today. I really want to thank Jeremy Steinkoler once again, and I can't recommend his book any more than I already have because you can tell I love it. So with that, I'm going to wrap it up, and we'll see you next time on Drummer Nation Live. Thanks, everybody.